There's a moment most people don't notice, but it quietly defines your entire financial life, and it has nothing to do with how much you earn on paper. It's the moment when you stop checking your bank account before making a decision. Not a big decision, just something small, like grabbing lunch, ordering an Uber, or saying yes to plans without doing the math in your head first. That moment sounds insignificant, but it separates completely different versions of life, and most people move through years of income increases without ever actually crossing into it. My name is Daniel, and I spend way too much time thinking about how money quietly shapes the way we think, behave, and experience everyday life. And today, I want to walk through what your life actually feels like at different paycheck levels, not just what the numbers say, but how your decisions, stress, and mindset evolve as your income changes. When people think about income, they usually imagine a straight line, like more money just equals a slightly better version of the same life. But that's not how it works at all. It's more like stepping into completely different environments where the rules change without anyone telling you. At one level, every dollar feels like it already has a job before you even earn it. And at another level, money starts to feel like something you can direct instead of something that controls you. The frustrating part is that most financial advice ignores this completely because it treats money like a math problem when it's really a behavioral system that shifts depending on how much margin you have. Let's start at the level where most people begin, somewhere around $35,000 to $45,000 a year. On paper, it doesn't look terrible, especially when you compare it to national averages. But the experience of living on that income is defined by constant calculation. After taxes, you're probably bringing in somewhere around $2,500 to $3,000 a month. And before you've even had a chance to think about saving or investing, most of that is already spoken for. Rent alone might take $1,200, utilities another $150, transportation easily $400 between gas, insurance, and maintenance, groceries another $350, and suddenly you realize you've spent nearly everything just maintaining a basic version of life. What makes this level so exhausting isn't just the lack of money, it's the mental bandwidth it consumes. Every decision turns into a small negotiation with yourself. You're not just choosing what to buy, you're deciding what to sacrifice. You delay things that shouldn't be delayed, like car maintenance or medical visits, not because you're irresponsible, but because the margin doesn't exist. This is where the system feels the most unfair, because discipline alone can't fix a situation where the math barely works. People at this level aren't failing financially, they're operating inside constraints that make progress extremely difficult. Then, something changes when income moves into the $60,000 to $75,000 range. The numbers start to work a little better, and for the first time, there's a sense that you can breathe, even if it's just slightly. Your take-home might be around $4,000 to $4,800 a month, and while your expenses usually rise with your income, there's often a small gap that didn't exist before. Maybe it's $300, maybe it's $500, but it's enough to create the illusion of stability. You can go out occasionally, upgrade a few things in your life, and start feeling like you're catching up. But here's where it gets interesting, because this level introduces a different kind of pressure. You're no longer drowning, but you're not secure either. You're in this in-between state where things look okay on the surface, but one unexpected expense can still knock everything off balance. A car repair, a medical bill, or even a temporary loss of income forces you right back into survival mode. Psychologically, this creates a strange tension because you feel like you should be doing better than you are, even though you're technically making a decent income. This is where a lot of people start using credit not out of carelessness, but because the margin is still too thin to absorb real life. Now, as income reaches that $90,000 to $120,000 range, something more noticeable shifts, and it's not just the numbers, it's your relationship with money. Your take-home might be around $6,000 to $7,500 a month, and for the first time, you're not just reacting to expenses, you're planning ahead. You can build an emergency fund, contribute to retirement, and still have money left over at the end of the month. But the biggest change isn't financial, it's mental. You stop thinking about money constantly. It's not gone from your mind, but it's no longer the first thing you think about when you wake up or the last thing you worry about before you sleep. This is also where lifestyle creep quietly enters the picture, because as your income increases, your definition of normal starts to shift without you realizing it. The apartment gets nicer, the car gets newer, the groceries get better, and none of these decisions feel excessive on their own. They feel earned. The problem is that these upgrades slowly expand your fixed costs, And if you're not careful, they consume the very margin that created your sense of stability in the first place. It's subtle, and that's what makes it dangerous, because it doesn't feel like a mistake, it feels like progress. Around this point in the video, if you're realizing that money feels less like a numbers game and more like a behavioral pattern, that's exactly the kind of conversation this channel is built for. So if you enjoy thinking about money this way, you can subscribe, because we're going to keep breaking these patterns down in ways most people don't talk about. Now, when income moves into the $150,000 range and beyond, the game changes again, but not in the way people expect. This is where you finally have enough margin for money to start working for you consistently. You can max out retirement accounts, invest regularly, and build wealth without every decision feeling like a trade-off. But what's fascinating is that this level doesn't automatically create financial security. It creates the opportunity for it. The difference depends entirely on how you manage the gap between what you earn and what you spend. At this level, the biggest risk isn't lack of money, it's invisible spending, the kind that blends into your life so seamlessly that you don't question it. Higher-end apartments, luxury car leases, frequent travel, subscriptions you barely notice, and a general increase in baseline expectations. None of these are inherently bad, but together they can quietly erase the advantage that a higher income provides. This is why you see people earning $200,000 or even $300,000 still feeling financially stressed, because their lifestyle has expanded to match their income almost perfectly. And this brings us to one of the most counterintuitive realities about money, which is that income alone doesn't determine financial security. The real variable is the gap between your income and your fixed costs. That gap is what creates flexibility, and flexibility is what reduces stress. Without it, even a moderate income can feel restrictive. With it, even a moderate income can feel manageable. The mistake most people make is focusing entirely on increasing their income while ignoring the structure of their spending. And over time, that structure becomes the thing that controls them.
What's even more interesting is how this affects your behavior over time. At lower income levels, decisions are reactive, driven by immediate needs and constraints. At middle levels, decisions become slightly more proactive, but still fragile. At higher levels, decisions can finally become intentional, but only if you protect that margin. Otherwise, you end up recreating the same financial stress at a higher level of spending, which is why so many people feel like they're running in place no matter how much they earn. If you zoom out and look at this from a bigger perspective, you start to realize that your paycheck isn't just determining what you can afford, it's shaping how you think about your entire life. It influences your risk tolerance, your relationships, your health, and even your long-term decisions. When money is tight, your world gets smaller because every decision has consequences. When you have margin, your world expands because you have options. And that expansion isn't just financial, it's psychological. This is why the idea of just making more money is incomplete. Yes, increasing your income matters, especially at lower levels where the math simply doesn't work. But without awareness of how your lifestyle adapts, that increase doesn't guarantee a better outcome. In some cases, it just creates a more expensive version of the same problem. The real goal isn't just to earn more, it's to build a structure where your income consistently exceeds your needs by enough to create stability and growth. So when you think about your own life, it's worth asking a slightly different question. Not just how much you make, but how your current income level is shaping your daily decisions. Are you constantly calculating, just getting by, or actually building something that grows over time? Because each of those states leads to a completely different financial future, even if the differences don't seem obvious in the moment. And if conversations like this help you think differently about money, consider subscribing to the channel, because the goal here isn't just to talk about numbers, it's to understand the patterns behind them so you can actually change how your financial life evolves. At the end of the day, your paycheck is less like a score and more like an environment. It sets the conditions you operate in, but it doesn't fully determine the outcome. That outcome depends on how you navigate the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and how aware you are of the subtle ways your lifestyle expands to meet your income. The people who build real financial stability aren't always the highest earners. They're the ones who recognize these patterns early and adjust before the system quietly locks them into a cycle. So here's something I want you to think about after this video ends, and I mean really think about it. At your current income level, what's one expense or habit that feels normal to you now, but probably would have felt unnecessary or excessive a few years ago?